This Thursday, January 16th, NBA Betting Picks edition of the NBA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code NBA SGPN to get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. Welcome, everyone, to the NBA Gambling Podcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Thursday, January 16th, 5 games on the NBA schedule here tonight. We'll recap what we saw briefly in the association on Wednesday night. Of course, we'll break down all 5 games for you on the Thursday schedule. Got some pretty good matchups. One in particular, of course. And then we'll give you our lock and dog, and of course, we'll wrap it up with our Underdog Fantasy entry as well. But joining me here on this episode to help me break down everything happening on the hardwood, you guys know him as the voice of the Tennis Gambling Podcast, the MLB Gambling Podcast, the WNBA, and of course, here on the NBA Gambling Podcast, Scott Studio Reichel. Scott, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
They're doing pretty well. I've been busy watching some tennis, so I ended up catching the end of that Medvedev-TN match just now that took about 5 hours to complete. Can't imagine how, physically exhausting it is to play 5 hours in Australian weather in tennis. But either way, point is definitely fun to, I'd say, segue from a night of pretty entertaining basketball to tennis till about 11 in the morning, and now I have a podcast to do. So overall, can't complain. It's a pretty fun time for me in January, where I'm just switching off between basketball and tennis, and then you have some football on the weekends. But either way, point is, a couple of, I'd say, interesting games yesterday, and overall, a couple of games that today might kind of catch your eye, maybe not, but the card's definitely smaller than it was yesterday. Still should be some pretty entertaining basketball tonight.
Yeah, we had some close matchups last night. We had, of course, some blowouts in there as well. Not going to mention one particular team close in or near and dear to Scott there, but the quote-unquote tank is officially on. But yeah, let's start with the first game of the night. Knicks and Sixers. Give the Sixers a lot of credit, at least pushing it to overtime, at least. They kept the game competitive, right? Obviously, no Joel Embiid playing in that game. Paul George and Tyrese Maxey did return for the Philadelphia 76ers. Made it a very interesting game. They got it tied at end of regulation to only lose the game in overtime. 125-119. Jalen Brunson, 38 points last night. Maxey for the Sixers had 33 in that game. Paul George, 26. Josh Hart with a triple-double last night in the absence of one Karl Anthony Towns. He played 49 of the 53 minutes last night. 10 points, 17 rebounds, 12 assists for Josh Hart. That was a fun game to watch down the stretch. And I think the other one that really caught my eye was the Mavericks and the Pelicans game. That one was entertaining in the second half. Pelicans do get the victory there. Some controversy. We can talk about that here in a second. 119-116 in that game. Hornets beat the Jazz 117-112. Jazz do cover the game. I think it was a 5.5 by the hook. Warriors barely pull it out against the Minnesota Timberwolves 116-115, and the Lakers ended up winning their game and I believe covering the spread as well against the Miami Heat 117-108. Scott, so those were the ones that really caught my eye. What were you looking at from last night?
Yeah, overall, just going through some of the things you just mentioned. Golden State, they never make it easy. They led by 24, and then they almost blew the entire game. So either way, nice win there. Curry had the big three in the corner as they outlasted the Timberwolves. I'd say they really won by 4, but Minnesota had a three-pointer with like 0.9 left to make it a 1-point game. But game got interesting a bit late. It was tied, I think, with about a minute to go. Boston really just sucks as a double-digit favorite, losing outright again to Toronto. They won the last game against Toronto by 50. And they ended up losing to Toronto this time around. Toronto in Toronto is dangerous. They're actually not that bad at home. They're really bad on the road, but luckily for them, they were in Toronto yesterday as they got the job done there. The Knicks, Cat didn't play. I don't know how long he's going to be out for, actually. Doesn't he have like a bone chip or something?
Yeah, there was a report after that he was ruled out that I think it was a thumb injury initially that he's dealing with, but there's also like a bone chip that was reported as well. So we'll see how long he's going to be out.
Yeah, but either way, point is that is, I guess, the first domino to fall in the I'm going to play every star player 40 minutes, I'd say, playbook for Tibbs, where Cat ended up getting injured, and we'll see how long he's injured for. But nice job by Hart, who had a triple-double. Brunson had a great game. Bridges had a solid game as well. So nice job by them. Besides that, though, the New Orleans game, the refs really sabotaged a great game because missing that goaltending call is just so egregious. That is so bad. And it was a 1-point game too, I believe.
Yeah.
So that would have given Dallas the lead, actually. And then they got a 2-on-1 after forcing a turnover. And then you see Murphy get a block, which is incredible, except for it wasn't even close to a block. It was clearly a goaltend, but they couldn't review it. So that kind of sucked, to be honest. That just sabotaged a very good game. A nice win there by New Orleans either way, coming back, I'd say, into the fourth quarter to get the job done there. Besides that, Grizzlies came back and they ended up winning. That was my lock for the show. I couldn't believe it was only 2.5. Not easy, though. They were down double digits at half. Wemby had 8 blocks in the first half and 0 in the second half. But either way, I got a question for you. If it doesn't count, can it be the best dunk of all time?
No, sorry.
Okay. Just asking. Because if you want to talk about overall moments in basketball, that poster dunk on Wemby was one of the greatest things I've ever seen on a basketball court. Now, it didn't count, so I do agree with you. You got to add a little asterisk to it. I know you could argue about bigger stakes moments like the Kyrie three-pointer in the final, stuff like that, the LeBron block. But that Wemby poster by Morant might be the best dunk I've ever seen, and it didn't count. So I don't really know how to feel about it.
Impressive. I think the best dunk of all time for me is when Vince Carter jumped over that guy.
I mean, yeah, I was going to say, that wasn't NBA, so I should clarify. I mean, the Carter dunk over Frederick Weiss probably is number one.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you're going through NBA stuff, most people on a short list would go like the DeAndre Jordan dunk on Brandon Knight, except he's 7 feet tall and Knight's like 6'2".
Yeah.
You have any of the Blake Griffin ones
Blake
on
Griffin's
Mozgov or on a Kendrick Perkins. You have the Wade one on Verjao or the Wade one on Perkins. Perkins really getting some, I'd say, some strays in this early portion of the podcast. But you have a lot of interesting dunks to choose from. But that one on Wemby is just something different. But it didn't count, so I don't really know how to feel about it.
Just thinking of it was God, which one was it? Just went over my head, but the Tracy McGrady one.
On Bradley?
Bradley, that one was at the time in hindsight,
I would say it was a full
not.
Poster, but Bradley looked up and goes, "Oh hell no!" and he just
let me get out of the way.
So that wasn't really,
the Derrick Rose one on
Dragic.
On Dragic, I thought that was very impressive.
That is a very good one too.
Yeah.
The point is, there have been a lot of great dunks over the years. I'm sure we're forgetting a couple, but I mean, LeBron's had a couple too. The one he had on, was it like Nurkic or Bielitsa maybe? Either way, point is, LeBron's had a bunch of them too. But either way, though, that Ja one on Wemby, even though it didn't count, is just an all-timer.
Yeah. Before we get over to the games here for Thursday, let me just remind everybody to get on the SGPN app. It's easy, instant access to all of our free picks and all the podcasts all across the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Just go to your app store, just type in SGPN, go and download the SGPN app, and help us grow the network here. Anything else from last night, Scott, you want to mention?
Trying to think if there's anything else. My Nets, I'm not even going to bother because they benched half the team, so they decided not to care. The only things I'll really point out, it's not really a full rant, but just to mention it again, I don't really know how NBA fans are supposed to go to games when you don't know who's playing until about an hour before the game. I feel like it's just something that's a serious problem. Philly, it's not a shock now that Embiid misses. I say you're more shocked that when Embiid plays than when he doesn't play.
Right.
But the Sixers announced like an hour and a half before the game, Nurse goes out to like a press conference and says, we're hopeful that like Paul George, like, congratulations, you're hoping they're going to play. I'm sure the fans are too, that are paying for that game. And then like nobody ends up playing. Turned out to be a great game though. So the fans got their money's worth. But even for Denver, like Joker missed a couple games late with an illness a couple weeks ago. Then he misses the game yesterday against Houston. It's a home game too. So you have like home fans that are there that now have to watch like DeAndre Jordan and like a couple other guys like play minutes instead. And I just feel bad for the fans. Like I just feel like it's a spot where the NBA still has a serious injury report issue where they should give you, I know it's a little bit different because the NFL also has warm-ups. They can kind of see some stuff, but it just feels like the NBA is too lax with their actual injury, either awareness or injury designations. And I feel like if you want to try to improve the quality for the fans, there should be like an hour and a half, 2 hour cutoff.
Yeah.
Where if you don't know 2 hours before, you should be forced to make a designation. And if you think they can play, they can play. I understand the argument of we got to test it out and warm up. That's great. You get to the arena like 5 hours before the game. You can do some shoot around before the game to determine if they can play or not. There should be like a 2 hour cutoff because that way they can let the fans know, okay, Embiid's going to play. Embiid's not going to play. Let's get tickets. But the idea that you can wait 5 minutes before the game to say, oh, by the way, the multiple-time MVP Joker, he's not playing. Like, I feel like that's insane, and that really does their fans a disservice.
I didn't even see that. I went in to check the box score for the Rockets and
they killed them.
Yeah, the Rockets and the Nuggets game, and I was like, it was first quarter. I was like, Jokic's not playing. It probably just went over my phone.
No reason for you to think he wouldn't, because like some guys like Embiid and like George they're questionable. They're injured all the time. Joker had a triple-double yesterday.
Right.
He barely played because they won the game by like 30, and he took 7 shots. So all right, Joker's probably fine. And then it's like, no, by the way, he's not playing. And it's like, well, what are you supposed to do now? You just watch your team get your ass kicked. I mean, you're looking at Bear, who said it's bad for the fans, bad for parlays too. Idom and rebounds. He got pulled early with that game. I know Jalen Green had 34. He didn't play a second in the fourth quarter. Yeah. Some people had 35 plus, and they got pissed. But once again, just another thing about the NBA. They got to fix it, at least for the sake of even betting or just fans who want to go to games. Can we at least make like a hard cutoff of when the latest you can change the injury report is? You got to at least give the fans a chance to know who's playing before they buy tickets.
I thought there was more of a chance that Murray would sit last night versus like Jokic. I know. I think we probably all kind of knew that Aaron Gordon wasn't going to play because he was coming back from the injury, the calf injury, and again being on a back-to-back that he would have probably sat. But yeah, I agree with you. I think there should be some type of rule enforcement that hour and a half for the game, 2 hours for the game. Like you've got to make that decision on if these guys are going to be playing or not.
You have all day to determine. Like you say, oh no, we're going to test it and shoot around. You can shoot around any time during the day. You don't have to shoot around with your team to determine if they can play or not. It just feels very, very, I'd say cruel to the fans.
Sure.
You pay full ticket price and the tickets would drop in like half the value if the best player was out. It's just not fair to them. I feel bad for everyone in Denver who was in attendance.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that's something at some point. I think something will be done, but I think that is going to be later.
You think something's going to happen? I don't think Adam Silver has any incentive to do anything.
Yeah, I think that's what I meant. I was going to say that I think it'll be done later rather than sooner. But I think it's more so for forget about the parlays and the bets. I think what you mentioned first about fans that that save up money to attend the games. I mean, there's fans that can maybe attend a game once a year, and maybe it was his game against the Rockets, that then you didn't have Nikola Jokic out there. So it's a little bit unfortunate. But I think, you're right that there should be something done about the injury reports and news as we get.
I'm not against, by the way, players having more power and stuff like that. I feel like we've gone too far though at some point where you're trying to grow the product and you're trying to, I'd say you're going to have to compare yourself to other leagues because, you're trying to compare your product to others. And it just feels like there's no, I don't know if accountability is the right word, but there's no actual, I would say, strictness to anything.
Sure.
And it feels like players are just free roaming and they could just choose when they want to play and when they don't. And I feel like if you're trying to attract new fans and you're worried about viewership and stuff like that, you got to cut down on some of this because a lot of it feels very, I'll honestly say Bush League. It just feels like it's not a professional league half the time.
Yeah, I agree. All right, before we get into the games here for tonight, just want to remind everybody about the NFL playoffs happening, of course, this week in the divisional round. And, we've been talking about the playoffs here on the NBA pod, of course, all across the network. But get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is key to winning in the playoffs, and you can score big by betting on them at DraftKings, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something as simple as like a player to score 6. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code SGP. That's code SGP for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
All right, let's get into it here for tonight. We'll start off here with the Phoenix Suns. They are in the nation's capital to take on the Wizards. Currently, as it stands, the Wizards are catching 11.5 points are at home with a total of 231 in this game. Looking at the injury report, we'll start here with the road team, the Phoenix Suns. They are going to be more than likely without Bradley Beal. He is doubtful with a left ankle sprain. Jusuf Nurkic is out as well. That is pretty much it. Did see the trade between the Hornets and the Suns yesterday. Nick Richards now going over to the Phoenix Suns to add some much-needed depth at that center position. Seems like Jusuf Nurkic may be on the move for the Phoenix Suns, but I really do like the pick up there for the Suns there. For the Wizards, usual suspects are out. Marvin Bagley, Sadiq Bey, and Malcolm Brogdon is going to be out for this game as well. KD making his return back to the area where he did grow up, but they are laying 11.5 on the road here, Scott, against the Wizards. What are you thinking?
Yeah, it tells you how much the Hornets are a joke because they finally trade away Richards and Mark Williams has 31 points and like a career high in his first game without another center. Like, really? Like, you're just letting them just cook on the bench the entire time? Like, all right, sure. It's why they're Charlotte. Anyway, the Suns have to go to Nurkic because he can't play. I mean, I know who's going to want him. He can't defend anybody. I've made that comment before. He just is one of the worst defensive centers in the entire league. So I think for this game in general, the Suns, I think, are obviously capable of winning this game by a ton of points, but do you trust them to do so? Not really. Yeah. I mean, like, the Suns are a team, I don't feel good about having money on either of these teams because the Wizards we know are terrible. They're awful. And the Suns we know are a team that's underachieved all year, and the question is, can they piece it together for a game or two? I saw Beal, though, might not play, which is kind of a shame because it could have been a Beal revenge game, I guess, against Washington. Even though it's not really a revenge game when they gave him $250 million, but that's a separate story. I feel like for this matchup in general, I'm going to go with Phoenix, but I don't feel good about it. Like, you can make a serious argument for Washington, but I don't know. Maybe I just picture the Suns having a monster game by Durant because, of course, he loves the DC area. Maybe he goes for 40. Booker can have 35, too. Like, I don't know. I feel like Booker and Durant are going to combine for 60-plus in this game. Yeah. And that's probably enough for me. I'll go with Phoenix, but there's no chance I bet this game. Like, 0% chance. There's no – you'd have to, like once again, I'm just saying, like, you'd have to be either extremely, I'd say, optimistic about the Suns right now or very pessimistic about the Wizards, or you have a gambling problem. It's one of the three outcomes here, but I don't want to bet on this game besides maybe going for like a player prop for Durant or something. But yeah, I'm just going to pass because why would I want to bother?
Yeah, I don't have the play on the side in this game. Like you mentioned, I don't remember the last time. I think the last time the Suns won by double digits was January 6th against the Sixers. They won that game by 10 points. But Wizards are actually walking into just handing out 120 plus points to the opposing team there. So I'm with you. I think it's more maybe look at just Devin Booker over on his points prop or Kevin Durant points prop to go over, rebounds to go over for him as well. Just did see a note as we started covering the Suns game here that Nick Richards probably won't make his debut with the Phoenix Suns till Saturday, so he will not be playing in this game on Thursday night here for the Phoenix Suns. So look for him to be there Saturday. So yeah, I think it's just going to be Kevin Durant 30 over on his points prop. I think that's the only play that I like in this game. Gun to my head, since we pick every game here, Suns minus the points here. I just think that, like you mentioned, that Booker and Durant could go out and score 60, 65, 70 plus combined, and that gets it done for them. You have anything on the total?
Be over or pass.
Yeah, I think so too. Over for me as well. Suns team total over. Like I mentioned, the Wizards over the past several games here, 120 to the Timberwolves, 136 to the Thunder, 138 to the Chicago Bulls, 109 to Sixers, 135 to the Rockets. So just has 132 to the New Orleans Pelicans. So yeah, Suns team total over would be the play in this game as far as the total for me. All right, let's move it along here. Next game on the schedule will go with the Indiana Pacers. They are visiting the Detroit Pistons. Pistons bouncing between -2.5 to -3 at home here. Total is at 228.5. Looking at the injury report, let's start here with the road team. Questionable tags on Tyrese Halliburton as he's dealing with the left groin strain. Aaron Nesmith is also questionable. And Benedict Mathurin is going to be out for this game. He is serving that league suspension for making the contact / verbally abusing the ref. For the Detroit Pistons, of course, we know Jaden Ivey is going to be out. And that is pretty much it. They're a very healthy squad here, are the Pistons. So Pistons, official number right now on our friends over at DraftKings at 2.5 here. Scott, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
So Detroit has been very solid lately, and I feel like Detroit's been a team that we've been pretty high on. I know you have Cade to be most improved, but Indiana's still been very, very good, and I feel like people don't realize how good they've actually been. I know Indiana did lose the last game to Cleveland. Fun game. You know, they beat Cleveland earlier, and now Cleveland got revenge there. Competitive game. They just fell short. I think I'm going to go with the Pacers. I feel like this game is going to be a very tough one, actually. I'd say predict in the middle of, because I just think it's going to be a very close game back and forth. Halliburton might not play. To be honest, even if he doesn't play, I actually still don't mind Indiana. This team defensively has actually been very good lately, despite giving up 127 to Cleveland last time out. I just think that when you're looking at these teams based on, I'd say maybe a tier system right now, I still think that Indiana's a bit higher than Detroit. Detroit's been good, don't get me wrong, and I know that Halliburton is viewed as a key piece to Indiana, but if he's injured, then, he's not going to do much. He's also had a pretty down year in general for standards for Halliburton, but I think Indiana defensively just has a certain gear that Detroit doesn't have. So if you're looking at what I think should be a close game that comes down to the wire, I think it'll be very close. But if you're asking who I think should be favored in this game, I think it's Indiana. I think the wrong team might be favored in this game, especially based on recent form over the last couple weeks. So I'll go with Indiana.
Yeah, Indiana is going to be looking out for some revenge in this game, as the Pistons earlier this season, back on November 29th, beat them by 24 points in their building. So looking to return the favor here are the Indiana Pacers. I've liked what I've seen, like you mentioned, from this Pistons team. They've already eclipsed, I think they had like 3 wins at this point last year. I think I mentioned this on the last pod you and I did, and they're already at 20 wins now, 19, 20 wins. So they've been impressive. 21 wins, I should say. I'm gonna go with the Pistons here. I like what I've seen from them, like you mentioned. With
I do too. Well. They've been good. I just question if they should be favored in this spot. I feel like that's a little bit much.
Yeah. I think this was, if this was on a neutral court, it would be -1 in favor of the Pistons. So maybe even, I don't know.
On a neutral? I think Indiana would be favored on a neutral.
How many points do you give for a home court?
I mean, home court, it's kind of difficult to tell for the NBA because you're looking at, like, once again, football is usually like 3. Yeah. You could argue that it's more in college. So, like, it really depends because the NBA, I don't know how many fans actually go to NBA games anymore.
I was going to say like 1.5 at most.
I'm just saying, if you're asking me on a neutral who I would take Indiana.
Yeah.
So,
but outside of Cade, who's been absolutely fantastic, we've talked about that. But the role players have also stepped up, right? Malik Beasley's been shooting the ball very well. Tim Hardaway Jr. He's had moments for this game. Jalen Duren inside, guys coming off the bench for this team.
Harris has been fun.
Yeah, Harris has been good too in a role where he doesn't have to be the guy. He's done very well. So I'll take the Pistons here at home -2.5 here. Scott, you have anything for the total 228.5 now?
I think I'm going to go under, actually. You could argue that it's going to be a higher scoring game because Detroit's offense has been fine, but Indiana defensively has kind of turned a corner. I feel like Nembhard coming back has really helped, I'd say, revive this defense, and you could argue that Halliburton being out is going to hurt the offense, but we'll see if McConnell ends up starting instead or what the story is, but I mean, they played twice. First game in Detroit ended up landing 224. Second game ended up landing 236. So kind of tricky. But either way, point is, I think I'll go under, but I don't feel great about it. I think it could go either way. Yeah,
I didn't have much on the total here. If Hallie does not play tonight. Quick note here: it is Andrew Nimhard's birthday, so if you want to get a birthday prop for one Andrew Nimhard, you want to look at it that way. But looking at their past couple of historical matchups, 236 in the last game earlier this season, 224, 225, 244, 254, 249. So they've had some pretty high scoring games there, but I think the big note will be if Hallie does play in this game or not, because obviously a guy that at point runs your offense, and we know how the Pacers like to play. It's usually been at one speed, but I feel like that's kind of cooled off for them this season at least. All right, anything else for this game?
Actually, yeah, I like Nemhard steals over 1.5 at plus 145. It's a great price. He's had at least 2 steals in 4 of the last 5. If you're looking at Halliburton potentially not playing, you might get even more minutes for Nemhard. But he is the best defensive player on the team by a wide margin. He's a very good defensive player. And even though Cade is still a solid, of course, he's a very solid point guard. The point is, though, the Pistons are still allowing a lot of steals per game. So I think you're looking at a good spot for Nemhard. They're allowing 9.5 steals per game, which is top 10 in, I'd say, for opponents. So point is, I think you're looking at a spot where Nemhard can get 2 steals at plus 145.
There we go. All right. Next game of the night is going to be the game of the night. The Cleveland Cavaliers, they are in Oklahoma City to take on the Thunder. Currently, as it stands on DraftKings, the Thunder are a 1.5 point favorite with a total of 233. Injury report, start here with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Pretty clean. Ty Jerome is the only one that is questionable for tonight for the Cavs. For the Oklahoma City Thunder, the big one is going to be Isaiah Hartenstein. He is going to be missing minimum 1 week with a calf injury. Chet Holmgren continues to be out as well. Jay Mitchell is also out. He has a right toe injury, and that is pretty much it. So Isaiah Hartenstein out for at least a week, which is, I think, a pretty big loss right now for this Oklahoma City Thunder team. Scott, these two teams just matched up last week in Cleveland, where Cleveland did get the victory 129-122. They did cover the spread of 4. And looking right now are the Thunder to avenge that loss. But what are your thoughts on this game between the Cavs and the Thunder?
So I was blindly going to take the Thunder because they had a revenge spot after losing to Cleveland in that great game that we saw a week or two ago. Then Hartenstein got injured. Yeah. So I think I have to go Cleveland because I don't know how the hell this team's supposed to rebound. That was the main issue we ran into. There was a little bit of a gap there before Hartenstein came back where the team was still playing well for their, I'd say in general, but I forgot what the record is with Hartenstein. What are they, like 23-2? It's like something insane.
Let me look it up.
Point is, though, this team like never loses when Hartenstein plays because they really can't rebound besides Hartenstein. And he plugged a lot of, I'd say, holes for that team because they had a rim protector who could also rebound, and it was selfless. And it feels like with him being out, maybe you have to use the other Jalen Williams as your center. Have fun with Allen and Mobley. Like, that's kind of the problem I have here because in the first meeting, Garland was solid. Mitchell did nothing the entire game. And Cleveland still won because Allen and Mobley combined for like 50 points and 20-something rebounds, and they just destroyed the entire interior for Oklahoma City. With Hartenstein out, Cleveland might get, like, I don't know how many offensive rebounds they might get, but it might be a ton. No. Like, I think I got to go with Cleveland. I think Cleveland, yes, maybe it's going to be a game where Oklahoma City makes it competitive anyway because that team's insanely talented as well. Maybe Shea has a monster game, but with no real, I'd say, threat on the boards or even for rim protection, I don't know how you're supposed to stop both guys on Cleveland's front court. I just don't know how you're supposed to match up with this team. So I'll go with Cleveland. I think Cleveland just has a very good roster matchup-wise for a Thunder team without Hartenstein because they can feast on the glass. So I'll go with Cleveland because I think that those two guys are going to really just make mincemeat of the interior for Oklahoma City in this game.
Yeah, and that's really what it is, right? Like that is the handicap of this game when you're looking at it from an X's and O standpoint. Because even if we go back, Scott, to that game that they played on January 8th in Cleveland, Jared Allen, 25 points, 11 rebounds. Evan Mobley, 21 points, 10 rebounds. And so even with Hartenstein in the lineup, those two guys still combined for 21 rebounds. 9 of those 21 rebounds combined were offensive rebounds for Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. They both, like I mentioned, had 20-plus points there. So I think it will be a big SGA game. I think SGA probably, if the Thunder want to win this game, is going to have to score 40 plus here tonight. I know Jalen Williams had a pretty good game against the Cavs in that matchup earlier this season where he had 25 points, 5 rebounds, and 9 assists. But is what you mentioned, it's the fact that's the handicap for me, is that without Hardenstein, that the Cavs are going to clean up on the boards and create those second chance opportunities, which will probably be the difference in this game. And I know the Thunder have been fantastic at home this season, but it's a lot different when you're missing a big man in the rim protection, like Scott mentioned with Isaiah Hardenstein. Just a record with Isaiah Hardenstein this season for the Thunder, 22-2 with him. Without him, 11-4. So 4 of their 6 losses have come without Isaiah Hardenstein on the floor there. So agree with you on the Cavs there. You have any thoughts on the total here?
The total's really tough because the last game was so high scoring, but I think I have to go over. Because if I'm picking Cleveland to get whatever they want on the inside, Mitchell did nothing last matchup, so maybe he goes for 30. Who knows? The Thunder are going to play fast anyway. I think I have to go with the over because the first game was high scoring and Oklahoma City has even less rim protection. So I'll go with the over in this game.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the total wasn't even close. 251, like you mentioned in the last game, 57 in the first quarter, 64 in the second. They scored 84 points combined in the third quarter. So it can really just take that one quarter there where they score 70 plus points to get this over the total. The fourth quarter did be a little bit more defensive where they only scored 46 points combined. But when you're scoring 84 points combined in a quarter, that's really tough on an under bet. So yeah, I'm with you. I like the the over in this game as well. Anything else for this game?
No, not really. I feel like if you want to pivot for somebody on rebounds, I don't mind Shea, actually. You can argue maybe J-Dub, but Shea's going to play so many minutes. I feel like you're looking at, once again, double-digit rebounds that are now being dispersed amongst the actual lineup. I don't mind Shea potentially grabbing some extra rebounds.
Would you take his PRA over?
Probably. I mean, the ball's going to be in his hands the entire time anyway.
Yeah, I'm trying to see what the numbers have looked like for both J-Dub and SGA without Hardenstein this season. So Jalen Williams averaging 21.2 points, 6.6 rebounds, 5 assists per game without Isaiah Hartenstein. The last 2 games that he did not play was Isaiah Hartenstein was against the Mavericks and the Spurs, where he had J-Dub at 27 points each in that game, 5 rebounds, 10 rebounds, and he had 5 assists each. And then let me just quickly look at SGA. I think he rebounds in particular. Let's see.
That would be my main pivot if I had to pick one.
Yeah, and it makes complete sense because, like you mentioned, he's going to get the minutes. So he is averaging 28.7 points, 6.4 assists, and 5.1 rebounds. Yeah, I think PRA would be the look for SGA for me in this game. We'll talk about, obviously, our underdog entry later in the episode. All right. Before we do get over to the next game on the Thursday night card, let me just tell everyone about our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Pick'em has one of the biggest menus for all sports. Underdog is always making it easier with profit boosts and gimme pick'ems. NFL, college football, college basketball, MMA, NBA, NASCAR, and more. You can now use specials and boosts on all flex entries. So sign up with promo code NBA SGPN to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. That's underdogfantasy.com. Make sure you use that promo code NBA SGPN. All right, guys, let's get over to the last game of the night. No, 2 more games here on the schedule. We've got my Houston Rockets. They are headed to Sacramento to take on the Kings in this game. Kings laying 4 points here at home with a total of 225.5. Injury report for the Rockets, not yet one submitted. They do get that extra time to submit it because they are in a back-to-back situation. For the Sacramento Kings, Devin Carter is questionable. He has left shoulder soreness. Malik Monk is probable. He was dealing with a right groin soreness, but he is officially listed as probable in this game here. We'll see who the Rockets do and do not try to out there. Typically, from what I've seen, Scott, for the Rockets, that you'll see maybe Fred VanVleet sit. That's the main guy, but other than that, I would expect everybody to be out there for the Rockets team. But nonetheless, Kings laying 4 points here at home hosting the Rockets.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Rockets in this one. They played yesterday, but they got to sit everybody for the fourth quarter, basically. The game was over pretty quickly. The Kings have been fine. I just don't think they should be laying 4. I get they've played better. I understand the argument is that the Kings have kind of turned it around a bit. Some easy opponents, but still.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Chrissy's done a good job with that team. But I do think Houston's the better team. The issue I have with the Kings is that I know Sabonis can have a monster game. Like, I'm aware Sabonis can give you 20 rebounds on any given night and stuff like that, but the Kings still are reliant pretty heavily on their guards, whether it involves Monk or Fox. And we said before, Monk might not play. The Rockets defensively are so good against guards that I just feel like it's a really bad matchup for Sacramento. Yes, they're looking at Sabonis, and he's not a good defender, so maybe Şengün is a monster game too. So maybe they cancel each other out. But if I'm picking Fox to have a decent game, not even an amazing game, like a decent game, because Houston defensively can throw a lot of different looks at them. Do I think the Kings have enough to really match up with this team? I don't. I think the Rockets are objectively a better team because they're a much better defensive team. Amin Thompson I love, even though he didn't cash me a bet yesterday, but that's not really his fault. Jalen Green's been on a massive heater. We're in that portion of the year where Green's scoring basically 30 every game. But they have options. They guard. I think they match up well. They can switch everything, and the Kings really can't do that. 4 feels like a lot. If it was a war, like in Denver, and a bunch of guys played like 38 minutes and you had a massive sweat there, then yeah, maybe I'd go with the Kings, but they really didn't. Jalen Green didn't play the 4th. Şengün didn't play the 4th. They should be fine. I think the Rockets should be arguably favored in this game. I think the Kings have looked better, but 4's a lot for a team that doesn't really guard anybody. They've been better defensively lately, so I'm not a good unit. Give me the Rockets. I think the wrong team's favored, arguably.
Do you remember what the spread was last night with Denver before the Jokic news?
Well, that line moved pretty heavily. So Houston was -1.5. Then Denver went to 2.5 when I did the show with Terrell. And then Houston closed the favorite once Joker got ruled out, obviously. But Denver was favored by 2.5 in that game.
So this is saying the Kings are...
Well, they're factoring in a back-to-back, too. So there's some travel stuff. But...
Yeah. All right, but just so looking at some of the back-to-back numbers here. So second leg of a back-to-back this season. Not a whole lot sticks out, but Rockets 4-3 ATS on the second leg of a back-to-back. But also, like Scott, you mentioned that the starters and the main guys didn't play in that fourth quarter because they didn't really need to. The funny part is that when the Rockets have a rest disadvantage, they're actually 7-4 against the spread. So they've done pretty well in back-to-back situations there. One more note I will make that the Rockets are a perfect 7-0 to the under in the first half in back-to-back situations. So they bogged down a little bit defensively. Maybe the wheels of the offense fall off a little. But yeah, you're right. I think this is too many points here for the Sacramento Kings. I understand that they've been playing well. Took one on the chin against the Milwaukee Bucks. They lost that game by 15. But prior to that, they had played Chicago. The Boston victory was pretty impressive.
It's a good win against Boston. Then again, Boston's lost to like all the teams are favored by double digits again. Right. So I don't know if that really means much, but it's a good win.
Yeah, they beat Miami. They beat the Warriors.
They should have lost to Miami, too. They trailed by 17 in that game.
Yeah, they beat Memphis, Philly without, I'm pretty sure, Embiid and Paul George and those guys.
That was the I think that was the Pat Spence Grizzlies. I don't believe anyone played for Memphis in that game. So they had a pretty easy part of the schedule. That's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, so Rockets here for me as well, +4. Anything on the total for you, 225.5?
Honestly, no. I think I'd rather just go Rockets team total over, but that's basically it. I just think that they're looking at a game that's kind of interesting because teams play conflicting styles. Yeah. Houston kind of wants to make it ugly and physical, and they'll grind you out in the half court defensively. The Kings want to run. But I feel like I'd rather just pick the Rockets defense to look sharp and the Kings defense to be questionable. So I think I would look more towards an under, but I'd probably rather just take Kings team total under if I had to pick something.
Yeah, Rockets also out. Last note I'll mention here that the Rockets out for some revenge here that they did face off in Sacramento earlier this season. Kings won that game 120-111. So Rockets looking to return the favor back here to Sacramento on the road here. All right, now the last game of the night, we've got the LA Clippers. They are visiting the Portland Trail Blazers in this game. Clippers laying 6.5 here on the road with a total of 220. Injury report for the Clippers. Not yet one submitted, of course, because they did play last night. I'll go ahead and make the assumption or not a hot take that Kawhi Leonard more than likely sits here tonight. Had a pretty good game yesterday. He did play 20, I think it was like 23 minutes, something like that. He did have like 24 points in the game as well. So pretty sure that he sits here tonight. Most of the starters really didn't play.
Who, Kawhi?
Yeah, Kawhi last night.
They announced before the game yesterday that he wasn't going to play.
Yeah. So last night, 24 minutes, 23 points for him. And then the starters, nobody played more than 24 minutes. Kawhi was the one, coincidentally, that played the most minutes. But Zubac 22, Harden 23, Norman Powell 22. For the Portland Trail Blazers side of things, Denny Avdia is doubtful here tonight. Donovan Cleveland, Jeremy Grant, Matisse Thybulle are all out tonight, and Robert Williams III is doubtful. So seems like it'll be the DeAndre Ayton show as far as the center position goes here, but Denny Avdia doubtful, Robert Williams doubtful, and then Donovan Cleveland, Jeremy Grant are all out here tonight. Clippers laying 6.5 here, Scott, on the road against Portland. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think I got to go with the Clippers in this game. I mean, Portland's a joke. I can't believe that Chauncey's still the coach. You're looking at this team that got blown up by the Nets last time out, despite Scoot dropping 39. They still got their asses kicked in that game. I think Ayton scored 2 points that entire game. Shout out to Ayton. Yeah, I don't know really what to like about Portland here. You're looking at Scoot off a massive heater. That could be a one-off. We don't know. I mean, they're all NBA players. So every now and then you get a heater by a guy that's kind of struggled. And you're like, wow, maybe he turned it around, or maybe he's just a professional basketball player. Like, we'll see. We'll see if they can end up, getting another great performance from Scoot. I'm skeptical, but we'll see. Simon shoots a lot. I mean, we know that he can be a flamethrower. Same thing with Sharp as well. I don't mind Camera, but when you're missing Avdia, most likely, who I think is one of their most, I'd say, winning players because he actually guards somebody. Klingon, I think, is a solid backup center. Robert Williams is out. So once again, you're relying on Ayton to do a lot, but Ayton completely no-showed that last game against the Nets. So I don't know if he's going to be there mentally for this game. They got too many questions. They don't guard anybody, and they're missing a couple of key pieces. I'll go with the Clippers. At least the Clippers have chemistry, and at least they're playing good basketball right now. Every now and then, the Trailblazers will sneak up on a team, and they'll be able to win. For the most part, though, they look like a very underwhelming team. So I am going to go with the Clippers here. Not even because of yesterday, just because the Blazers are a team that I don't take seriously. And with the missing so many starters and missing so many key contributors, if you want to rely on Ayton as your only center in the entire game, like, good luck to you. Like, I'm rooting for you because I think that he's got a lot of potential for props.
Yeah.
He scored 2 points against the Nets. Like, he just chooses games to not care. And I'm wondering if we're in that point of the season, right before the trade deadline, right before the All-Star break, etc., where Ayton's just going through the motions because the team's not playing for anything.
Yeah, I had his rebounds to go over in the game, thinking that he would have at least a good rebounding game.
And Claxton didn't even play.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I played it. He ended up, I think, with like 8 rebounds.
Like, he had like 2 and 7. It was something like 2.7. It was something disgusting. Like, it was like,
I was watching the box score. That's why. And Donovan Cleveland that game ended up having 14. So that means tonight he's probably going to have 14 rebounds tonight, just because they don't have much depth at that center position. But 9 of the last 10 games the Clippers have won, and it's been by 7. So they won 9 of the last 10 head-to-head meetings against Portland. 8 of those 9 meetings have been by at least 6 or more points. 7 of those 9 meetings have been by 8 or more points. And I mean, 15, 11, 12, 13, the last matchup back on December 3rd, Clippers won 127-105. So I think that just continues here. I'm with you. Like you mentioned, it's just, I don't know what Chauncey is going to do with these rotations, because honestly, you're right that I still can't believe that he has a job. But yeah, I'll make it simple. Clippers minus a 6.5. Totals at 220. You want to get your thoughts on that?
I mean, it depends if Portland cares or not. I think I'll just go Clippers team total over, because I don't know if Portland's going to score against this team, but I think the Clippers can definitely score against this defense. So I'll go with the Clippers team total over.
Yeah, Portland put up what? They put up 114 against the Nets, but also gave up 132. But they
also trailed the entire game. So that's why it's like, I don't know how much garbage time was involved in that,
Yeah. They scored 98 against the Heat, but they had 111, 119, 115, 105, 106. So, yeah, not a lot for me on the total here. I do like Norman Powell in this game without Kawhi Leonard to score points here tonight. His points prop is at 25.5. But that's all I pretty much have for this game. You have anything else for Clippers Blazers?
Not really. I liked Harden assist yesterday against the Nets that got there, but I feel like once again, you know what? Yeah, sure. We'll go Norm Powell points. He used to play there.
Yeah, I used to play for the Clippers. I mean, sorry, for the Blazers. And I was looking at this earlier before we started recording, and he's done pretty well against the Blazers. At least the last two matchups, I should say. He scored 30
makes sense.
points
They don't guard
each.
anybody. So yeah, I think Powell's going to line for maybe 25 to 30 if they're going to keep playing Trailblazer defense.
Yeah, third matchup this season already between these two teams, and Powell has scored 30 points each in those two games. So if you look at Norman Powell points prop tonight, he's also hit 5 threes in each of those two games against the Blazers this season, 10 of 17 combined in those two games. So
his points are at 24.5.
Yeah,
30
like
plus is 230, by the way. His threes are at 3.5. 4.5 is at plus 230.
The only part that does scare me is that if it turns into a blowout, he has like 22 at the end of three
and then doesn't play.
Yeah. All right, that is the last game of the night for the Thursday card. Let's get into our lock and dog, and then we'll put together our Underdog Fantasy entry for the Thursday card here. Scott, you want to lead us off?
Sure. I know what my dog's going to be. I just got to figure out what my actual lock's going to be. I'm probably going to go player props. I wasn't really a big fan of the spreads today. I mean, you could argue that, the Clippers, like there were a couple cases to be made, but I think I'll go elsewhere for this one. For my lock, you know what? I think I'll just go with what I think is a pretty solid option here. I'm going to go with Durant points at 27.5. I think the line's too low.
Yeah.
The last couple of games, he's been hovering. He had 31 last game against Atlanta. Washington doesn't guard anybody. I mean, Washington's given up multiple 50 pieces across the league. Like, they don't guard anybody. And you're looking at Durant, who has a pretty solid connection to Washington. I think that he'll definitely look pretty sharp in this game. The Wizards defensively, we know, are a joke. But you're looking at his career games against the Wizards. He's averaging 28.1 points per game in 29 games against the Wizards. So he tends to own this team. He has scored at least 28 points in 3 of the last 4 against Washington. And he's also scored at least 28 points in, just pulling this up right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the last 8 against Washington. He scored at least 28 points. I think 27.5 is too low. Give me the Durant over on his points as my lock. That's about minus 110. Actually, no, it's minus 120 from what I see. That'll be my lock. For my dog, I am going to go with the Nembhard steals play I mentioned before. Give me Nembhard over 1.5 steals at plus 145. The Pistons do turn the ball over a lot. It's one of the main flaws of this offense. They do allow a bunch of steals per game. Nembhard has 2+ steals in 4 of the last 5. I think it's a good spot for him to get some steals. And with potentially them missing Halliburton, you might get more minutes for Nembhard in this game. So give me Nembhard over 1.5 steals at plus 145 as my dog.
Love it. Just scrolling. I think maybe this has been there for a while on DraftKings, but they have like combined player props and like both player points, like a category. They have Durant and Devin Booker both to score 25 plus at plus 105. That's a little intriguing there for me. But anyways, for my lock, I really do like Norman Powell tonight. But
I looked up his numbers, by the way. The first meeting he had like 20-something shot attempts. Second game against Portland, he went like 11 of 16.
Yeah,
which I can't really account for.
Yeah,
but he's still, of course, a very solid player.
Yeah, 100%. All right. So for my lock, I think I'll stay in that Suns and Wizards game and just take the over. I think that number one, the issue is going to be in this game is that the Suns are going to give up some offensive rebounds because, again, they don't have a true center right now until Saturday, which makes me think that if Valanciunas does get a start here tonight for the Wizards, that he has a big rebounding game. But we mentioned that the Wizards are giving up 120 plus, like, without any effort, or I should say lack of effort. But I think the Wizards can still get their points in this game here, but I do think that this number does fly over the total. So I'll go over 231 as my lock between the Suns and the Wizards. For my dog, I'll take the hometown team to get it done on the road here, plus 150 on the money line for the Houston Rockets against Sacramento Kings. Yes, they are on a back-to-back, but like I mentioned, they've done pretty well this season on back-to-back situations, and we talked about it when we broke down the game that the starters didn't play a lot of minutes. Should be a a pretty big game, I think, for Jalen Green to continue what he's been doing. And, Scott mentioned the point that we've talked about all season is that the perimeter defense for the Rockets against opposing point guards has been very, very good. So I think that they limit both Malik Monk, who's also dealing with that groin injury. He is probable. I do expect him to be out there. De'Aaron Fox hasn't done very well against the Rockets in his career, at least points wise. So I do at least believe the Rockets do cover this number, if not win this game outright at plus 150 currently over on DraftKings. So I'll go with the Rockets as my dog pick of the day, plus 150 on the money line. Yes, homer pick for sure, but when I like it, I gotta take it for the Rockets.
They're good on the road compared to most years.
Yeah, 100%. They're just gradually getting better every single year under Udoka. So I think that's really been a breath of fresh air after what's kind of transpired for this team over the past several seasons after Harden left. All right, Scott, last order of business, Underdog Fantasy entry here for tonight. Again, go over there, Underdog Fantasy. If you don't have an account already, I don't know what you guys are waiting for. Join the fun. Make sure you use that promo code NBA SGPN if you don't have an account already. You'll get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000 courtesy of Underdog Fantasy. All right, so we talked about some player props that we do like here for tonight. Scott, we want to start with SGA, PRA?
Sure, that's fine.
So that number's at
the star power.
Yeah, 44.5 is the number there. But again, I think the minutes are going to be there. The points we know are going to be there, especially with that Hardenstein there in the lineup. So I think that he'll get rebounds there as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if at minimum he does have a double-double.
Well, I feel like, once again, that might be where we could consider pivoting, though, because if we're picking him to score like 35 points, then aren't we just going to take him to score 35 points?
Yeah, so you just want to do points?
Either points or if you want to go for like assists, I don't mind that either. But you know what I'm trying to say, though? It's like we're taking PRA, but we're basically banking on a 35 piece anyway.
Yeah, so points and assists are at 38.5. Assist alone is at 5.5, but it's 0.92x, and then points alone is at 32.5.
You want to just go for the points?
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, we'll just go points.
Like, do you realistically see him getting to like 44, whatever PRA, 45 PRA without scoring 32 points? Probably not.
No.
32, 30, like probably not.
At that point, he would have to get a triple-double then, right?
Pretty much. So I'd rather just not assume he gets a triple-double.
Yeah. All right, so we'll go with SGA. We'll keep it simple. Higher 32.5 points. What else are we looking at? Go to NBA.
You want to go Durant points?
Yeah, I like that. I also like his rebounds tonight, but we can just go points. 28.5 is the number for KD. And then you want to throw your Nimhard one in there? If he's
that should be spicy. I mean, that is a pretty decent plus money price on books.
Let's see if they have it. They don't have defensive props for.
That doesn't shock me. I was just wondering. All right. So if we wanted to pivot to something else, I'm trying to think of what else we would want. I mean, do you want to go like Allen rebounds or something for one of Cleveland's centers?
Yeah, we can do that. Let me go over to that game.
It's either that or a Jalen Green heater, so you can pick. I can't turn down, the prospect of a Jalen Green heater because when they last a couple weeks, they are pretty fun to watch.
Very profitable, yeah. And his points are only at 23.5 as well.
That is very low. I think we need that.
All right,
23.5 against this Kings defense is too low.
Yeah. So all right, we'll go all points projections here for tonight for our entry. So to recap, SGA higher 32.5 points, KD higher 28.5 points, and we'll go Jalen Green higher 23.5 points. So every $10 that you do put in, you'll get a return of $60, a 6x entry if all three of those indeed end up being correct for our Thursday night Underdog Fantasy entry. I think we hit ours on Monday, right, Scott?
Yes.
What was that last week? Yeah. Cool. All right. So yeah, come join the fun. UnderdogFantasy.com. Make sure that promo code NBA SGPN. Adam asking if we do think Cade has a good night. Yeah, his PRA has been very profitable over the last 3 days, or last 3 games, I should say. Especially without Jaden Ivey. So this spread, as he's indicating, is going to be a close game, but I do think that Cade does have a pretty good game. I personally do like his PRA. I think it was 41.5.
I think he's going to win for a great game. The problem is, though, that the books know that he has to do everything on the
team. So it's a little bit inflated.
That's the issue you run into. But.
Yeah. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the NBA Gambling Podcast for the Thursday games. Got anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
Yeah, I'm going to be doing a tennis episode right after this. So once again, if you want to check out some thoughts on the third round of the Australian Open, I'll be covering it on the Tennis Scaling podcast. Besides that, I know we do not have any baseball episodes for the next, I'd say, month or so. But I have to at least mention it. It's going to end the episode on a down note, but I have to actually talk about it. Definitely a sad day in baseball because Bob Uecker died, who is one of the best broadcasters of all time. You might remember from Major League. He was the broadcaster in Major League, but yeah, that kind of ruined my morning. So wanted to at least bring it up, who I wanted to give him his flowers, who definitely was one of the most, I'd say, famous broadcasters and one of the best. So, yeah, definitely a sad way I'd say, end the morning. But either way, point is a shout out to the Brewers organization and shout out to Uecker's family and shout out to Uecker, who ended up having an all-time great broadcasting career and movie career. But either way, he's in the Hall of Fame. Definitely helped grow the sport, and he will be missed.
Yeah, 100%. Iconic voice, you can say, at minimum, for him. So thoughts and prayers out to his family as well. So sad day, of course, in baseball. So all right, make sure you guys follow Scott over on the Twitter machine at Reichel Radio. You can follow me there as well at SportsNerd824. We'll be back tomorrow for the Friday schedule in the association, so look out for us then. Till then, good luck with your bets. Let's break these books off, and always remember to let it ride.
Basket